Today's topic is when a person does a Zimun, at what point does he have to join in if they're still in the middle of a meal? The Shulchan Aruch says the following: So if you say you're that third person, you're not done eating and you're joining in the Zimun, you just respond. Once you respond, you are allowed to continue eating. Let's say you want your dessert. You don't want to just give up on dessert. You want to finish your pastry. You want to finish your ice cream. You want to finish your apples, your fruit, your whatever you may be. So you don't want to bench right now. So what do? You join into the Zimun and you respond accordingly. And then says the Shulchan Aruch, once the person who leads the benching also says Baruch Shechalnu, what can you do? Continue eating your delicious food. Let's continue. Below bracha b'tchila, and you would not need to, let's say, continuing to have your Danish and your pastry as part of your dessert. You would not need to make a mazonos over it because it would be subsumed under when you made your mazonos when you washed a little bit earlier. Okay, that is not the standard practice, right? What is the standard practice? What do you usually do if you're the third person in the Zimun, right? And you want to continue eating, what do you normally do?
Mitzaref, and then you continue.
How far do you mitzaref for? Well, says the first bracha. So where does that come from? It says the Rama. The yesh omrim shetzarech lafsik ad sheyomer hazan esakol. Now those who say no, you need to wait until you finish that first bracha. V'chein nohagin, and he says this is the standard practice. And he quotes the Rosh, and he quotes the Tosfos, fine, and others. And let's say he wants to continue eating bread. Even if he's not going to eat, but you are not the Yotzei, the bracha. So let's say if BJ is leading the benching, he's a Kohen, right? So BJ is leading the benching. I listened to the first bracha. Now it's my turn to bench. I need to say the first bracha again, because you could argue, wait, I heard the first bracha already. I said, Amen, maybe I don't need to say it. No, you still need to say it again. Okay, fine. For sure, how much more so if you actually continued eating your meal, in which case that has sakol. Of course, you wouldn't yod say that because you continued eating your meal. And what do we see from here? We see that there's an idea that the Zimun, according to the Ramah, that's very counterintuitive. Why would to be yod say Zimun? I get it. I listen to Zimun, I respond accordingly, it's over. Why is it lingering hazan sakol? What to do with Zimun? Ask you another question. The proof that has nothing to do with Zimun is, if I continue eating, even if I don't continue eating, but I want to bench on my own, what do I start with? The first bracha. So what is it? I don't understand. Is the first bracha part of Zimun, part of benching? You never know people say it a lot. Like, why are you saying it a lot for? For a question. People do it. The question is why they're doing it. Right? We see people behave a certain way. The question is why they're doing it a certain way. So we see you're supposed to wait for a Zan Sakol. The question is why are you? Because if it's part of Zimun, well, you did already. If it's part of Zimun, so then you should just start with no delacha when you want to bench. But start with the beginning. What's wrong? It's flashing? We'll be okay. We'll get through it. Don't worry.
Just 3 when it started.
Yeah. It's okay. We're almost. We're not going to spend. It's not going to be that long time. Says the Mishabura. Take a look at this.
It was at 3 bars when it started.
Join me in 42. Ad Shiomer. Ubazeh levar yotzim yedei berkas hamazon. Okay, fine. Yes, b'yosei berkas hamazon. Below bracha tchila. Dahainu. Ein tzarich od hapam nitlish yadayim motzi. Meaning, you don't need to wash again, right? So you've responded to the Zimun. You said hazan sakol, but you don't need to wash again, right? You can still, your original hamotzi still is being continued. After all, right? Just because you entered Zimun doesn't mean you're full, doesn't mean you're satiated. You want to continue eating, right? You want to give up on your half-eaten pastry. But if you thought you were done, and all of a sudden you're like, I want to eat more. That's a big problem. You might have to wash again. That is not good practice, right? Most people, okay, I'm joining the Zimun, I'm going to bench too. Other people are like, hey, I'll answer, but I'm not going to bench. In which case, continue eating.
And you realize that you want to bench.
Okay, that would be okay, because you could be just yotzit and you bench. That's not a problem. The other way would be potentially problematic. Now, the yesh omrim, shetzurich lafsik, sfir le'edaf berkas hazan lav ligmor beberkas zimunhi. Okay. Believe it or not, there's a din in the Gemara that first bracha of Hazan Sakol is actually part of the Zimun. It actually is part of the Zimun. It's an appendix of the Zimun. Yet, Hara Yachid Amir Tagamkin, but a Yachid still says it. You follow? So that bracha really plays two different roles. It plays the role of it's part of Zimun, meaning it's maybe the response to Baruch Shachanu Mishlo Devachayinu Baruch Devachayinu Baruch Atah Hashem. It's a response to the Gadol Hashem Iti, as we discussed before. Yet it is also part of one's obligation for regular Birkas Hamazon. Okay?
So you're saying that like it's not that it is the Zimun. It's just it kind of like
it fulfills the Gadol Hashem Iti. It's part of that appendage. What? Shem Malchus. Right. So as we said, afilu hachi shaycha leberkas zimun. It's part of berkas zimun. De nevarech lavai no bracha. Because just to say nevarech shachanu mishal abroch. It's deficient. She'ein b'shem u'malchus. You need shem u'malchus, right? And by just saying Baruch Shachalnu Mishlot V'chayinu, where's God's name? Where's God's name? The answer is Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam Hazan Olam Kulo B'Tavo. That's the answer. So now you at least you appreciate the practice that people do, right? Now you understand why they do it, because it's the response to Unerom Mamash Shemo Yachdav. Ki Shem Hashem Ekra. You need that Shem Hashem being Korea, right, or being the Roma Mashmo Yachdav. As we saw two different sources in the Gemara for Birkas Zimun. So that's why that first bracha Vazanas Hakol is both part of the Zimun. In which case you have to not eat and listen because it's part of the Zimun. Yet at the same time, when you want to bench, it's also part of Birkas Hamazon for the Yachid. Okay, so it plays both functions. What?
When you have a minion, you say I should stay.
And very good. With minion, you fulfill Baruch Elokeinu Shachan Mishlo V'chayinu. Zeh She'ela Tovah. Let's continue reading. Okay, so it could be that yes, you say Shem Hashem. The question is, right, do you say enough of a bracha? So, if you take a look at the language of the Mishnah Berurah, right? It says not just Shem Hashem. Then he says you need the nevarech lavad in a bracha she'in b'Shem u'malchus. So it could be you need a bracha with Shem u'malchus. So, Baruch Shachanu Mishalom maybe is just still not enough of a bracha. Okay, let's continue. And when the guy who leads benching says Baruch Shachanu Mishalom, what's he referring to? When you say join me, what are you really joining me with? The first bracha of Birkas Hamazon, which is why you say it out loud, which is why there's an obligation for a person who's leading the Zimun to say it out loud, because you're joining it together, right? Not just, you shouldn't really mumble it, you should actually say it out loud. So, Ad Shomer Hazan, V'chozer v'gomer sudaso k'mo shekasuf mechaber, and once that's Hazan Asokol, you can actually continue eating. V'achar kach mevarach mitchilas Birkas Hamazon, and you start from the beginning when you want to privately bench. And what's the rationale behind it? V'atam, second line, sh'af, Dishama Birkas Hazan, Mipia Mizamein, even though you heard that first bracha, so maybe you be Yotzi already, Mikol Makam, Mishitzach Levarach, Kol Birkas Hamazon, Mishua Masha Achal. But your benching has to go on everything you ate. So if you ate more, your benching needs to cover everything. Even if you don't eat, if your das wasn't, Lachzor chagach v'ligmor sudasog shebirach chagach mitchila berkas hazan to given the daso yalechol od mistama, meaning since you thought you're going to eat more, even though you don't end up eating more, you didn't have the proper kavana when the person was eating benching said it out loud because you thought you're going to eat more, so in which case you weren't yod say it. Therefore, you have to say it privately. It could be, and there was a time this was the case. That's the prevailing minhag today. That you don't, in theory, you could just listen to Birkas Hamazon and be yotzi that way. We don't hold that way. We say we don't have the right kavanah today. It's too long to be yotzi that way. Instead, we say it to ourselves. But mi karadin, the guy who leads benching, says the whole thing out loud. You can just listen, say amen. In theory, you'd be, again, if the kavanah is to be motzi and to be yotzi, kind of like Megillah reading, that would be nothing wrong with that at all. And Jen, just to conclude, the Bir Halacha in 43 says, Aval im lo haya da'ato lecho rak pirparot or basar v'dagim, if you just wanted to have, say fish, you wanted to have a couple of vegetables, a little bit of salad, or meat, yotze yedechova birkas hazan. Look at that. You, in theory, mikaradin, you would not need to say the first bracha again. Now that would really make you stand out in a crowd, right? Right? Okay, time for you to bench. No delach Hashem Elokeinu, right? People look at you like you're, okay, but he says, really, you're yotze already the first one. However, he says, listen, it's hard to do that. because v'zar l'chil, you really shouldn't talk. Then you're going to have to maybe say, after benching, main shalosh, which is the bracha achrona, or the parprot shishini b'shachat, for the guy. So that's a bit, you're getting involved in a couple of very, very interesting halachic exercises here, gymnastics. Kilo niftar b'kas hamazon ho v'lo berech b'berkas hazan. Because you got to say hazan es ha'olam k'lo b'tivo if you're eating other types of food. Okay, interesting. So that's why he's going to say that he doesn't like it at the end of the day, and that was what he will conclude with. But I thought this very interesting point that he mentions that really, okay, maybe you don't need to say the. And then the conclusion, the author writes is v'lamaisa and hagin kain. Not that you're surprised. Lamaisa, you got to repeat that first bracha, even if all you have is a little bit of fish and meat. You still should say that first bracha aloud and not have it count as what the person who led the Zimun be yotze you. Have a wonderful day, everybody.